Hey guys, Michael Corsentino for Shutter Magazine with my next new lighting tutorial. We've talked in the past couple months about hard light, we've talked about soft light, and this month I want to share with you my two must-have lighting patterns. Now we have a lot of lighting patterns, but I wanted to share with you the two that I use most often because they are the most versatile, and they are really the lighting patterns that I end up using a ton of times. They're my kind of my go-to lighting patterns. So when we talk about lighting patterns, there are a lot of lighting patterns to look at. So first we'll cover those. So you can see here I've included a couple diagrams for you to give you an overview of the position and the angle that your light needs to be for each of the lighting patterns. Now it's a really good thing to learn all of these lighting patterns, and we'll look at each of them individually. But again, we're going to focus on the two must-have lighting patterns that I recommend and love and use all the time. So you can see here on the left we've got a circle with a little position diagram which shows where your light is going to be positioned relative to the subject, what angle it's going to be. And then on the right we've got the overhead view where you can see where the light is going to be rotated around the subject, starting with Paramount Light, which is a flat light, moving on to loop light, and then to a Rembrandt Light, split light, rim light and accent light, all the way to backlight, and then back around to the front with the same situation, with the same lighting patterns just happening on the opposite side. So let's take a look now at the overview of the lighting patterns. Okay, so you can see here you've got Paramount Light on the left, moving from left to right. So we've got Paramount Light with a reflector. Okay, and you can refer back to the diagrams to see exactly how to create these looks. All right. But again, we're starting at the 12 o'clock position with Paramount Light. The light is right above our camera is right in front of our subject, and that's where we're getting this Paramount Light situation. And then when we move to Paramount Light with a reflector, which is also known as clamshell light, so that just opens up the shadows underneath the chin and opens up the eye sockets, and that is a really classic light, and we're going to look at that. Loop light is next, and this is again as we start to move our light, in this case to the left of the subject, and you can see here, to the right of the subject, and you can see here that we've got a little loop shadow coming down off of the subject's nose, right? And that is where it gets its name, loop light. Now the next one is going to be Rembrandt light, and that is again as we move our light further to right and up a little higher, you've got a shadow that comes down and starts to connect with the lip, and you also have the little triangle of light, the highlight on the cheek. These are the telltale signs, the signature hallmarks of Rembrandt light. Okay, now as we continue to move our light all the way around our subject, we've got split light. Okay, that's where we kind of leave off. And then I wanted to show you broad light and short light. Okay, you can see those down at the bottom. Now broad light just means the light, the majority of the lit side of the face, the side that has the most light is facing the camera, right? Short light is the opposite of that. So you can see here that the shadowed side of the face is the side that is facing the camera. So that's broad and short light. And you can do that with, multiple lighting patterns, whether it's whether it's Rembrandt light or loop light. You can do that either one of those, broad light or short light. Broad light you use when you want to create a fuller appearance on the subject's face, and short light you use when you want to minimize weight, you want to thin out a subject, you use short light. So that's a great technique to use. All right, so those are our lighting patterns. So the ones that I want to focus on and the ones that I end up going to time and again are Paramount Light, and Paramount Light with a reflector more often than not. And you can see here in the close-up, the detail of these images, that reflector really does make a difference. And again, that is known as clamshell lighting. It's still Paramount Light, but when you pop that reflector underneath, you've got an over and under lighting situation arrangement where you're opening up the shadows, you're opening up the eye sockets, and it's just a really lovely look. And you can do a lot with it. You're going to see the variety of looks that we can create with this based on the kinds of reflectors that you're using, what their interior finishes are, and you can create a host of different looks, and you can add in accent lights and do all sorts of fun stuff. So that's Paramount Light. So again, if you look at that on our diagram, you can see that Paramount Light is centered to the subject at the 12 o'clock position if you look at our right diagram. So the light is always, it's going to be right in front of your subject, right above the camera, and you can see also on the left hand where it says ring light or flat or ring light, that is where you're, or I'm sorry, right above there, because you want to have the light at an angle, okay? Ring light and flat light is something else, and that's typically on the camera itself, in front of the lens. But Paramount Light is going to be at about 45-degree angle down. So you want it in front of your subject, over your camera, angled down at about 45 degrees to your subject. And that's going to give you a beautiful Paramount Light, also known as butterfly light, because of the little shadow that it creates under the nose, but it's essentially shadowless. Okay, so here you're seeing two versions of what you can create with this lighting arrangement. Really amazing and really divergent looks, but equally compelling, but just for different reasons. On the left, we've got a beauty image, and on the right, we've got a really edgy sports kind of look. And it created both of these using that exact same lighting pattern, just with different modifiers, okay? On the left, obviously, we have a much softer look. I've used a diffused modifier. I've used a beauty dish with diffusion, with a white interior, a white reflector underneath to open up the chin, open up the eye sockets, and we've got a really beautiful beauty look, fashion look. On the left, or rather on the right, we've got our edgy boxer, and that is the same sort of scenario, same lighting pattern, but we've just used a different reflector. We've used a silver interior beauty dish, and I've augmented it with some accent lights from the side to create this really cool edgy boxer look. And again, I've used a silver reflector underneath to stay with that kind of specular. Why use silver is to create a very specular look, contrasty look. So again, but still the same lighting pattern, okay? So one lighting pattern can have multiple looks. And that's really the thrust of this tutorial, is that these two lighting patterns have tremendous variety and utility. You can do a lot of stuff with them, and that's why I end up going back to them repeatedly. All right, so that's that. Okay, next is Loop Light and Rembrandt Light. They are kind of brother and sister. You can see here they're very similar, but Rembrandt Light just has a longer shadow. All right. The images that we're going to look at are Loop Light. I kind of end up, defaulting to Loop Light, at least in the images that we're going to look at. But Rembrandt Light is also classic and beautiful, and you can see that little triangle of light on the cheek. It's classic, so definitely worthy of use and very, very versatile. Okay. So again, you're going to see that position for Loop and Rembrandt on our right diagram. You can see here that we're introducing direction to our light, and by introducing direction, we're introducing shadow, and that really creates volume and structure, and it's I think really beautiful. I love shadow because photography is by nature highlight and shadow. So you'll also see that if you look on the diagram on the left, you'll see Paramount, Loop, and Rembrandt Light. You'll see the angle that you want those. Essentially the same angle at that 45-degree angle. And that's not hard and fast. You want to sort of, season to taste, but that's a good ballpark. All right. So let's move on here to look at a couple images using Loop Light. All right. So here you're seeing two versions. You're seeing a broad lit version. Again, broad light means that the lit side of the face is toward the camera, and you can see that on our left image. And then on the right, you can see Loop Light, but this is short light, okay, because the shadowed side of the face is facing the camera. So you can see both of those looks, right? And they're both appropriate. Short light is a little more dramatic. Broad light is a little more open by nature and airy. So season to taste, whatever works for your subject matter and your personal preference. All right. And then here we have, this is going to be more of a Rembrandt style lighting, but augmented with an accent light coming in from the left. So this is kind of a classic cross-lit style of lighting, which I really use a lot and love. So definitely try that. It's basically you're just setting up an auxiliary light, a secondary light, which is your accent light or rim light, opposite the key light, and that is known as cross light. So here you've got Rembrandt with a cross light, okay, because we've got our key light to the camera right, angled down, creating that little shadow off the nose. You can see it works perfectly well on location as well. So those are my two tips for my two favorite lighting patterns. Okay, so Paramount Light, i.e. clamshell light, and loop light or Rembrandt light. They are amazing. Check them out. They'll work beautifully for you in a variety of situations. And as always, be sure and post on Facebook. Tag me. Let me know what you're doing. I'd love to see it. And I will see you next month here at Behind the Shutter Magazine, BehindTheShutter.com and Shutter Magazine.